My wife and I were here in Jacksonville for a level 2 school, and I was a pastor, and we came down here and I wanted to learn about how to bring healing prayer into my church, but I didn't think there was anything that I really needed personally, that I needed any healing myself. We were down here and there was a practicum and that we were getting ready for, and earlier in the day before the practicum they had done a demonstration on conception to birth prayer, and I found it was very strange. I found myself getting very sleepy and starting to doze off, and I never did that when anybody was speaking, because as a pastor I always had respect for the people that were up front, but somehow I was not interested in that at all. I was on track with everything that was being taught with the exception of conception to birth prayer, but in that practicum that evening we were going to practice conception to birth prayer, and I was going to be the recipient. And they asked me if I knew anything about my mother's pregnancy. Well, I hadn't known anything about my mother's pregnancy until a week earlier. I had officiated my grandmother's funeral, and my aunt had come to me and said to me, "Kenny, did you know that your mother was just as sick with you as she was with your sister?" Well, my sister was born 2 years later, and my mother died in childbirth because she had been terribly sick with toxemia. And so I said, yes, I guess I do know something. My mother was very sick while she was pregnant with me. And so they began the conception to birth prayer. And in the prayer, they were going to take me through all 9 months. But one of the prayer people that were there, right when I was coming to conception, I was going to put my hands together, which was symbolic of the egg and the sperm coming together. And right before that happened, she took her hand, and I saw her do this. She took her hand and went over the top of my head and said, "I cut you free." And then I didn't even hear what it was she cut me free from. But all of a sudden, I fell down face forward, and they had to grab me so I didn't fall on my face onto the floor. And I was crying so hard that I could not catch my breath. And I thought I was going to die. And they held on to me and they prayed for me for all this time. And it was an amazing thing. It was something totally unexpected. And the Lord removed something from me during that time. I was walking out to the car afterwards with my wife, and Sue said to me, "Did you hear all that commotion that happened in the other room, that room where you were at?" And she had been in a different room, and I said, "Yeah, I heard it. It was me." And she said, "Oh, how embarrassing." But something happened. And a few months later, Sue said to me, "You're different. Something's different about you." I didn't immediately see that. Later on, I took a Myers-Briggs test. I'd had to take these before for different reasons, and I always scored very high on introversion. I was the kind of person that I could keep to myself. I loved people, but I didn't really need people, and I could do without them. I could be by myself and be quite happy with that. But something had changed on that Myers-Briggs test when I took it, and I had moved up to a middle point in terms of introversion, extroversion. Something had happened with my emotions. I'd always been very closed with my emotions, somewhat cold, a little detached, a little bit aloof. And all of a sudden, I found that I had emotions, and they would come. I could cry very easily. I could laugh with people very easily. And there was a great freedom that came through that prayer that I didn't think that I needed at all. I didn't think anything was wrong with me. And yet the Lord knew, and He was so gracious to meet me in conception to birth prayer.